I'm Delanne Elliott Midland. I'm the president and CEO of the End Brain Cancer Initiative. I want to welcome all of you today to the New Developments in PCNSL Treatment webinar. Dr. Hamdy is the Chief Medical Officer of Curis. He joined the company earlier last year, May 2025. And prior to joining Curis, he served as CEO and chairman of the board of directors of Vincerx Pharma. And prior to that company, he co-founded Acerta Pharma and served as its CEO and its CMO, Chief Medical Officer. Before Acerta, he was Chief Medical Officer of Pharmacolytics.
Pharmacyclics.
Say that again.
Pharmacyclics.
Thank you. I apologize. So he is adjunct professor at University of California, Santa Cruz, Department of Biomolecular Engineering, and is a member of the Dean's Council of the Jack Baskin School of Engineering at the University of California. Dr. Hamdy received his MBBCH. Now, some people will not know what that is, so I just want to take a moment. That is a Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery, a primary medical degree awarded in many countries, and it is the equivalent of an MD in the United States. Let's see. You received that from
Cairo, Egypt.
School of Medicine at the University of Cairo, Egypt. Thank you so much for being with us today and talking about the PCNSL trial that Curis has. And we know this trial as the TakeAim Lymphoma clinical trial.
Well, thanks, Delanne, for having me. I'm delighted to be here at the End of Brain Cancer Initiative and delighted to be alongside our dear colleagues, Dr. Nayak and Dr. Gromas, and really appreciate the contribution and collaboration in thinking through primary CNS lymphoma and how we can help patients across the board. And thanks for all the patients and their caregivers thinking of clinical trials and thinking of how to move through this difficult disease and finding cures for patients. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. So at Curis, we have a pivotal trial that we are conducting with two oral drugs, mainly ibrutinib and emavusertib, which I'll talk more about in a second. The trial's called TakeAim Lymphoma. It's an open label trial in relapsed refractory primary CNS lymphoma. I'm going to try not to belabor this. Dr. Nayak and Dr. Gromas both have touched on this, but primary CNS lymphoma is a difficult lymphoma that is driven by a transcriptional factor called NF-kappa B. NF-kappa B has multiple pathways that controls it, one of which being the BCR signaling pathway or the B-cell receptor pathway, which is BTK or ibrutinib or tirabrutinib play a big role, or acalabrutinib or zanubrutinib, and they play a very big role in inhibiting the BCR signaling pathway. In parallel, there is the TLR or the toll-like receptor pathway that also controls the NF-kappa B. That can be inhibited by our drug, emavusertib, which is an IRAK4 inhibitor. So we feel that combining IRAK4 inhibitor emavusertib with BTK inhibitors can have a dual inhibition, and therefore can have a more impact on the NF-kappa B pathway. In preclinical studies, exactly what I just said, we showed on the graphs on the right. You can see ibrutinib by itself works, emavusertib by itself works, but they work better when they're combined. And we feel that this can make an impact in a lot of B-cell malignancies, including primary CNS lymphoma. At Curis, we started a very exciting program where emavusertib was tested in a phase 1 trial, starting with a part A, A1 and A2, where there was a dose escalation. with expansion in both monotherapy and combination. And now the expansion parts of the trial, we call them Part B and Part C, in a phase 2 setting, both of which are approved by the regulatory bodies for potential registration, emavusertib in primary CNS lymphoma. Part B focuses on patients who are BTK experienced, with the concept patients have progressed most recently on a BTK inhibitor, either ibrutinib, terabrutinib, zanubrutinib, few incidences with acalabrutinib. So if a patient has progressed directly on a BTK inhibitor and in a relapsed refractory setting with primary CNS, that trial or portion of the trial would be eligible for. The other part, we call it Part C, which is the looking at the different components of the different drugs that we are testing, both in monotherapy and in combinations. And in that trial, we're looking for patients with relapsed refractory primary CNS who have at least received one prior treatment that must include methotrexate and have not seen Bruton tyrosine kinase inhibitors or BTK inhibitors. Here we randomize patients to emavusertib, ibrutinib, or the combinations. We also allow patients to cross over after monotherapy into the combinations. And let me show you some of the data that we've generated from that trial, because I think it's really quite compelling and exciting in many ways. But before I talk about the efficacy, I want to talk about safety. Across all our trials, we've dosed about 270 patients early as this year. Emavusertib is very well tolerated. More than 60 some patients have been in combinations with BTK inhibitor. All the toxicities that we can see are manageable and quite benign. No serious adverse side effects have been reported in the blood or the brain. It can be combined with other medications safely. Currently, we recommend our dose to be 200 milligram twice daily in combination with ibrutinib. We have tested it at much, much higher doses. We went all the way up to 400 milligram twice daily. And at that dose, we found some muscle breakdown and was only a laboratory finding, and also in 300 milligram twice daily. But again, at the current dose that we're testing, 200, it's very well tolerated and quite manageable. And any toxicities, laboratory toxicities that we've seen, we just do a quick dose holiday and labs come back to normal and we start dosing again. So from efficacy perspective, as I mentioned, we believe that the dual mechanism of blocking both the BCR and the TLR pathway are very important. And in our trial, we've seen that patients who have been exposed to BTK do respond, and we can reverse their progression. And in patients who have not seen a BTK, we've seen here a 100% response rate where we can show that the tumors can shrink and disappear. And not only that, but patients can stay on the study for quite some time. And I think, the durability of response is really an important factor. Dr. Nayak, Dr. Gramas both have touched on that. We've had patients on the study for a very long period of time, and we've had responses that are going up to 10 months, and we even have some patients that have been on the study since May of 2025 in complete remission. The median duration that we've seen was about 51 days. The interesting part that really is exciting is we can see the reversal of progression in patients who are progressing on a BTK quite fast in the first or second or third cycle, which also emphasizes the importance of the inhibition of the TLR pathway and that the dual blockade can really make a difference in those patients. So we're pretty excited about the potential for this drug for primary CNS lymphoma patients, and we continue enrolling. Before I talk more about our sites, I always say, pictures speaks louder than any words. This is an example of a young patient's 53-year-old male with primary CNS lymphoma who got worse and have had 2 priors, including ibrutinib. And he received the combination of EMA plus ibrutinib. And he had you can see the tumor at November of 2022, indicated by the red arrow, and started to shrink. By May of 2023, tumor has gone, and the patient did very well and was in a complete remission for over a year without the use of steroids. Obviously, this is one of the examples, but we have several patients that have followed the same path, which is really exciting. All side effects were quite manageable, and this patient have stayed on the study for almost 13 months to date. So again, we really think clinical trials can make a difference for a lot of primary CNS lymphoma, and it's a potential path for a lot of patients who are in a relapsed refractory setting. If you're interested in a clinical trial, this is the sites that we are currently, we're in a global trial. We have quite a bit of sites around the world. I'm happy to direct you or answer any questions. Or again, Dr. Nayak and Dr. Gramas are both heavily involved in our trial. And I really appreciate the contribution and the scientific acumen and the input that we get. So we're pretty excited about the potential of emavusertib in primary CNS lymphoma. With that, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Hamdy.
Brought you back on time.
You did. Yes, that was quick. Awesome. Nice job. Let's take a peek and see if there's any questions. Shreya, do you have any that have come in?
Yes, I have a question for you, Dr. Hamdy. So, for patients who may be newly diagnosed or experiencing a recurrence, what should they be asking their oncologist, and how can they advocate for access to clinical trials like the TakeAim Lymphoma?
Well, they suggest to their primary care or whoever's taking care of them to investigate clinical trials, obviously get second opinions, and try to find a local institution that is contributing to a clinical trial. Our trial designed for relapsed refractory primary CNS lymphoma in patients who either have progressed on ibrutinib or have had at least one line of therapy that includes methotrexate. So again, communication with their doctor and second opinions, and going to clinicaltrials.gov and looking at the sites that are participating in such trials. And if need be, can reach out to me and I can help navigate where they are.
Thank you. I have another question that came in, and this would be for all the doctors. So the patient said, methotrexate toxicity has impacted every aspect of my life. Besides journaling, learning something new, puzzles, word searches with my CBD methods, are there any new drugs that may stop the progression?
We heard about some today.
Correct. There was many today. There's also, you heard now about at least 2 trials. Actually, you heard CAR T cells, you heard about the ongoing studies with combinations. So there is a lot that is available as trials. And there's also, the NCCN guideline that I refer to, because, you can also try conventional agents. They might not be as effective, but that is something to consider. Also, I have recently also used these like lenalidomide or ibrutinib or zanubrutinib in combination with methotrexate to kind of re-challenge the tumor if the tumor is not methotrexate refractory. So that is another option. Radiation is always an option. Has been shown to be very effective. But I think today we saw a lot of potential treatment options.
Another question that came in was, are there any clinical trials or research being studied on neural plasticity and making new neural pathways to reverse cognitive decline as much as possible after the whole brain radiation therapy?
I could take a shot at this. A lot of the data comes from brain metastases population in terms of considering the addition of or medications for preventing neurocognitive decline. However, in that regard, the data quite supports that, or the data is a bit unclear how much it helps and whether it helps every patient or not. So perhaps, with time, as we do studies, we will understand the neurotoxicity a bit better and how can we sort of prevent patients from developing these. We are including as a part of, and I know that MSKCC has been doing this for a very long time too, neurocognitive testing as a part of initial workup and follow-up. Now, the IPCG actually recommends it, but it's not uniformly performed on patients. And I think part of it is, engagement from patients as well, because these are non-trivial tests and it takes 2 to 4 hours to undergo CES, before we can understand, the results of those. And so I think that as we're progressing, we're developing actually digital tests that are that are shorter, can be done at the convenience of home, and then can be read and interpreted by the neuropsychologist in their office. And I think that with technology, we'll understand the neurocognitive side effects a bit more. And, as we're doing CSF collections and sampling and understanding more about neurocognitive side effects from treatments, we will be able to delineate, which patients are actually more susceptible to these changes than not, because not everybody suffers to the same extent, despite, even if you take age out of the question. And so I think there's more to learn. There's certainly work being done on neurotoxicity, and we're certainly a part of that work as well.
Thank you, Dr. Nair. I just have one more question. Is PCNSL considered to be a genetic disease? And should family members of patients also be tested similar to breast cancer?
Well, as far as we know, if I may start, we have not seen a familiar accumulation of primary CNS lymphoma. Other than in gliomas, for example, sometimes there is, when the DNA repair mechanism is affected by mutations, patients develop more cancers in general, or families, and one of those cancers can be gliomas. So we do offer genetic testing. It's not that there's something that is, blatantly outstanding.
Thank you, Dr. Gromas. Any other questions? I also want to say thank you, SS, for your comment in the chat. I'm hoping that Dr. Nyack has seen that. Wow, what a great presentation and conversation today.